All right, welcome in everyone. We're so excited today to announce the latest update to Hubly, which is going to help you collaborate more effectively using service teams. I'm going to go through a quick round of introductions for myself and Fred prior to walking through some of the common challenges that led us to this update that we've seen our users face and the industry face more so around working effectively as a team, especially in workflow software. We're going to talk a little bit about what we built and why we built service teams prior to handing it over to Fred, who's going to lead you through a demo today. And we're going to save 5 or 10 minutes at the very end here for a quick Q&A. So if you do have any questions come up, again, just open up that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and you can submit your questions there. We will answer some of them live, and some of them are going to be answered towards the end of the call as well. So my name is Ron, as many of you know. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hubly, and I lead many of the training calls and work with a lot of our clients right now. I'm joined today by Fred. Fred is our product manager, and he's the one that led the efforts on the development of service teams, working with many of you as well to get your feedback along the way and to ensure what we're building, what we're going to be showing you today is going to be helping you solve for important needs. So looking at those of you that are working in Hubly, listening to some of our largest firms, we've noticed that there are some challenges that growing teams began to face when trying to work together effectively, and specifically when trying to stay on top of so many different clients, working through so many different projects with various team members inside of a firm. Specifically, we noticed something very interesting. We noticed that 48% of the templated tasks that our users use were not pre-assigned to anyone specific on the team. And what this led to is that for so many of you, there was actually a role that emerged around assigning work and making sure that each project found the right person who's going to be responsible for completing it in a timely manner. When we looked deeper, we saw that this really began to form from the earliest days. And what we mean by that is looking at some of the smallest organizations, we found that when that solo advisor brought on their very first employee, could be an in-house financial planner like Ali here, or a virtual assistant, the complexity started to grow. But at this point, Hubly really still scaled with you. It allowed you to quickly and efficiently delegate and designate which tasks in a workflow were to be performed by who on your growing team. Now, over time, we noticed that specialized roles began to emerge in these teams. And that typically happened around the hire of that second person. Especially when that second person shared responsibilities with others on the team, things began to get a little bit more complicated. Such as Troy here, who supports John for a specific set of clients, while Ali supports him for the rest. And as we looked at larger firms, we saw this complexity exist at an even larger scale, as soon as there were multiple advisors and multiple team members at every single role within the team. Such as the team here, where you can see there's still 2 financial planners, but now 3 additional advisors and 1 client service associate have also been introduced. What we found is that on teams that were growing at that pace and on teams that came in already that complex, a lot of time was spent being that air traffic controller, directing which set of tasks or which workflow should be assigned to which team member whenever a client was added to it. So we decided to fix that. And we're really excited today to introduce service teams and show you how it works. When designing service teams, it was really important for us to design something that was client-centric, yet flexible. We heard time and time again that having rigid structures didn't work because things change on a client-by-client basis. Team members go on vacation. Team members begin sharing roles or go part-time. And roles evolve. So it was really important to us to build something that can grow with you and that can work flexibly. So in Hubly, service teams is available on every client card. It's right there on the right-hand side below the contact information and above the key dates. And it makes it easy to spot exactly who on your team is responsible for which roles when it comes to that specific contact. Service teams could also be updated. So if the responsibilities change from one team to another, you can always reassign a contact from one team to the next. It was also important to build service teams around the clients that the people actually are responsible for. So we built it around a key role or a lead advisor, we called it. Now, this lead advisor can exist only in Hubly, or if you already have a lead advisor or a servicing or writing advisor designated in your CRM, you can, of course, go ahead and sync this role into a role within your CRM. You can also add custom roles in Hubly that are not synced. So for example, if you have advisors already assigned to the clients that they support in your CRM, you can use that to build out your service teams in Hubly. And then in Hubly, you can have custom roles for the financial planner, the client service associate, operations associate. And as your firm continues to grow, you can add additional roles as well. This way, it makes it easy to make sure that the specialized tasks for financial planners and other roles get assigned to the right people for that advisor that they support. And again, that means that you don't have to do too much setup because all those advisors are already pre-assigned and synced in from the CRM. So likewise, so would be the other roles that you assign to support that specific team member. We'll show you that in a second. And lastly, it was important, critical in fact, that everything that we built would make it so that you can route your workflow tasks automatically or automagically, as some of our early testers have called it. Meaning that when anyone in your team adds any contact to any workflow, those tasks should automatically find who they should go to and be routed to them as well. And so once you introduce those different roles, once you designate the advisor, the financial planner, other specialized roles for specialized tasks, Fred's going to show you in a second how to actually go ahead and just simply reassign those workflows tasks to the right roles, same way as you would previously assign them to a team member. That way, when you add any contact into that workflow, Hubly's going to take a look at who the service team is for that contact and delegate each task accordingly. Now, this is pretty simple to envision when it's a one-on-one relationship, such as in this case, when you have John supported by Ali and Troy. In this case, you would have two service teams. One where John works with Troy, and you'd have a set of clients assigned there. And then you'd have another where John works with Ali. So you'd have a set of clients assigned there. Now, if you already have in your own CRM a designation of which contacts Troy is assigned to and which contacts Ali is assigned to, you can sync the financial planner role instead of the advisor role and make that the key role that builds these service teams. If you don't, you can, of course, assign these teams manually as you work through those specific clients in Hubly. Now, when you reach a higher complexity, this is where things really get interesting. And this is where service teams really shines. For a more complex team like the one that we showed earlier, with 4 advisors, 2 financial planners, and 1 CSA, you can begin to see that the service teams really begin to show you who is working with who, and Hubly can automatically, of course, track exactly which tasks should be routed to which person in that role for every single client. And we're going to show you that in a second. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Fred. And for everybody else, you can also follow along with Fred in your own hubs as well. Over to you, Fred.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. So yeah, as Ron mentioned, my name's Fred. I'm the product manager at Hubly, primarily responsible for incorporating the awesome feedback we get from users like yourselves into our product. Just first wanted to say thanks to all those who provided us with a lot of great feedback so we could, endeavor to build this product, and hopefully it's something that you'll all benefit from and hopefully love. So yeah, with that, I'm super excited to show you how Service Teams works. For those who are Hubly users, I'd encourage you to open up Hubly as well at this point and navigate to app.myhubly.com. And I'll go ahead and meet you there. 1 second. All righty. So I'm first going to start out by going into a view and pulling up the client meetings view and really focusing on the client card that Ron discussed, how that looks now that Service Teams is launched. So if we click into a client card, we can see on the right side of the card is this Service Teams section. And that section now has the team associated with this specific contact and the roles for that team: Associate Advisor, CSA, and Ops Associate. It also has the users who are, assigned to each one of those roles: John C, JNS, Alex R, and JNS for Ops Associate. And so what you can do directly from the client card, as Ron had mentioned, is actually reassign clients from one team to another if you'd like. But this page just gives you kind of a summary view of the team associated with the client in this situation and what users are, working in those specific roles for the client here. So that's how it looks in the client card. Definitely want to show how you actually get this set up, how you get Service Teams set up so that you can start benefiting from the functionality as soon as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the settings page here. If I click on settings, go into Service Teams, you can basically see this new Service Teams section has all of the service teams for this hub. And so this hub, you can see the teams have actually been already set up, but each specific row is an actual service team. And so we've got Associate Advisor, CSA, and Ops Associate. For instance, on Team 1, John's the Associate Advisor, Tucker's the CSA, there's Alex and Jane in the Ops Associate role, and 13 contacts assigned to that team. So that's how it's set up for this specific team. And you want to first start by setting up the roles associated with your firm so that you can really set the structure for your team. Just so you know, if you're on this page now, you'll probably just see the default settings row, which we'll talk about in a minute. But to set up the roles and the structure of your team, you'll first want to click on this Manage User Roles button. And so this Manage User Roles button will take you to the screen that has all those specific roles that you've set up for your hub. So in this instance, you can see we've got Associate Advisor, as Ron mentioned, that's actually synced to the Redtail Associate Advisor role, CSA, which is synced to the Redtail CSA role, and then Ops Associate, which is not synced to a CRM role. And I can actually rename these roles to be more specific based on my firm, as you can see. And I can also actually add a new role here as well. So for those of you starting out, this will probably just have the advisor role in it. You can add a new role, or you can stick with the advisor role here for now, like I'm doing. And you can see that advisor role has now been added. I'm going to actually just pull it up here to the top. And similarly to how Ron mentioned before, syncing your roles to the CRM can be a good way, if you keep those assignments in your CRM up to date and active, to pull in service teams into Hubly. We want to provide you the ability and flexibility to not necessarily sync all roles. That's why we have the option to keep roles unsynced, keep some roles synced up. But if you assign the roles to specific, if you assign your CRM roles accurately and up to date, you can set up your service teams really easily in Hubly by syncing the advisor role to, or another role to a role in Redtail or in Wolfbox. So what I'm going to do here is actually sync this advisor role to the advisor role in Redtail. And once I do that, you can see that's all set up. I'm going to go ahead and X out of this modal, and it's actually going to load up a CRM sync right when I X out of it. And it'll take a moment to actually sync up. So that'll go ahead and load. And once that actually happens, you can see now the advisor row column has populated. And now there's a team here with Alex as the advisor and the 16 contacts associated with that team, as well as Deb as the advisor and the 13 contacts associated with that team. So these are now have been pulled in based on the CRM assignments from your CRM roles, those contact assignments in there. I'm just going to go ahead and, because these now have 0 contacts associated with them, just going to actually go ahead and delete them. So we can clean up the service teams table just a little bit more, and basically show you that these are the teams associated with this specific hub. So that's how this hub is set up now. We've got these specific teams. You'll probably, like I mentioned before, notice this default settings team. And so actually, when you click on each one of these rows, you can see you can actually edit the team. And when I click on the default settings team, you'll notice that these assignments for the default settings team will be used by contacts that don't have a service team assigned, as well as for all service teams when no user is assigned to a role. And so the default team is really easy to just be able to set up and have those assignments for maybe unassigned contacts in your CRM, or you don't want to create unique, a bunch of different unique service teams. Those default settings assignments will actually waterfall down to the other service teams if you haven't set a user in one of those roles. For example, here you can see in the default settings team, Alex and Jane are in the default settings for Ops Associate. They're grayed out on these other 3 teams because we're using the default settings for each one of those teams. So if I click into Alex's team, for example, you'll see I don't actually have an Ops Associate user assigned to this role, but I am over here using those default settings users, and Alex and Russell are actually assigned to that team. So default settings gives you a really good way to just scalably and quickly and efficiently set up your service teams so that you don't have to create too many unique service teams, and that it can just be really easy to get started with using service teams. So these are the teams that are set up right now. I want to go into now actually putting these teams into practice and having these workflow template tasks assigned to specific roles. So let's go ahead and do that. Just going to navigate back here. And like I did before, I'm just going to pull up the client meetings and reviews. And so what you can see, if I click on this client review meeting preparation workflow and hit edit, you can see this workflow template is assigned to a few users and it has a few unassigned tasks. So this is maybe a common situation for workflow templates where, let's say maybe Deb is the CSA for a lot of these tasks. What we can do now is easily click this kind of summary task button at the top that says Deb is assigned to 3 tasks, and actually just reassign those 3 tasks to the CSA role. Now those 3 tasks are assigned to the CSA role, and whenever a contact's added to this workflow, Hubly is going to intelligently look at who the CSA is for that client and route the task to that user based on that assignment. You can also see here, there's a few unassigned tasks. Maybe those are typically done by the advisor, but the tasks are unassigned because the advisor is not one specific person. It depends on who the client is for who the advisor is assigned to. We can go ahead and reassign these 3 unassigned tasks to the advisor role, and those will be now reassigned to that advisor role, as I said before. And then this task right here, execute ops review, we can tell is done by an ops associate. So let's go ahead and reassign that to the actual ops associate role. So now this workflow template is completely assigned to roles, which means it's much more standardized and much more scalable for your firm based on the specific people in that role for that contact. And I'll show you how that works in practice. I'm actually going to use Duncan Finley here. I'm just going to delete him out of this workflow and go ahead and add him back in. And now what you can see is if we click into the client card, all of the tasks have been assigned to a specific user based on that role that they serve for this contact. So Jane Smith was assigned this task because she is the CSA. Alex Russell was assigned this task because he's the advisor on the account, and so forth. And all of those tasks are assigned to a specific user, except for this task right here, which remains assigned to a specific role and not a user. And so why is that? That's because if you look over in the ops associate role here, 2 people actually are in this role for the contact, Alex R and Jane S. So Hubly is basically keeping that task assigned to the specific role, and it's going to send Alex R and Jane S an email that says a task in your role has been assigned. Please click here to actually potentially assign this to yourself or assign it to, Jane or something like that. So we leave that task assigned to the role so that those ops associates can actually go in and say, okay, time for me to take this myself and do that work. What's really beneficial about that specific, shared role logic is that those users can actually filter the hub and hub feed by their specific role. So if I X out of here and go to filters, and maybe I want to start my day by saying, okay, I'm an ops associate. So what's, on my plate today, I can actually filter the entire hub by ops associate. In this situation, we're actually just looking at the client meetings and reviews, but filtering this view by ops associate. And you can see now that the tasks for ops associate only pop up so that I can go in and easily, assign those to myself and do that work. The other benefit is that the user can actually go in to the hub feed as well and say, okay, let me look at what's really, I'm an ops associate, so let me look at what's really urgent coming due for my role. I can filter by ops associate and say, okay, look, I've got 2 overdue tasks. Let me go ahead and pick those up. I also have, one coming due soon and one, next week. So it gives you an idea of, instead of leaving things unassigned, getting much more specific with a role and maybe having a group of people go in, filtering the hub by role, filtering the hub feed by role, and getting an email notification indicating that they've been able to, get that assigned to them. And so that's the way that we, from a default perspective, are handling these shared roles where there's 2 people assigned to a role. But there is another way that you can choose as well to route shared role tasks to specific users. And I'll show you that right now back in the settings tab. So if we go back into settings, we go back into service teams, that takes us to this shared task default settings section. And you can see right now, like we just talked about, tasks assigned to users in shared roles will require manual user assignment. So that's what we just looked at. We can actually change this so that tasks assigned to shared roles will be reassigned to the user with fewest tasks. And so that means when a contact's added to a workflow where several people share the same role on the service team, then the tasks for the role will get assigned to the person with the fewest number of incomplete tasks. So we're looking at the capacity of each user in that shared role, trying to figure out what's on their plate and assigning it to someone who has a little bit more room to be able to manage that work. And so we can take a look at how that actually works in practice by looking at this view again. I'm just going to, use Duncan Finley here, remove him, re-add him back in, and click on the client card. Now you can see that execute ops review task has actually been assigned to a specific user. It doesn't just stay assigned to the role. And why is that? Because Hubly, after we updated that setting, looked at the ops associate role, looked at Alex R and Jane S, determined that Jane S had a fewer number of incomplete tasks assigned to her, and so then assign that task specifically to that user. So it's a way of being a lot more automated and specific around, okay, let's look at the plate of each one of my users or people in my firm and say, let's assign that task to the person with the fewest number of incomplete tasks. So that's the gist of service teams here for the demo, and would definitely kick it back over to Ron to discuss a little bit more and keep it open right now for a few more questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fred. That was a really detailed demo and really helped us visualize exactly how service teams show up, how to go ahead and build those service teams, how to make those awesome default settings so that you don't have to worry about perhaps getting everything perfect right off the bat. And then that was a really cool trick about routing tasks to the right person as well, especially where there's the multiple people sharing the one role. So I know for existing users that already have their workflow set up, this is probably just a couple of more steps to get those different workflows set up in such a way that you're now leveraging user roles and you don't have to do it alone. So if you're interested in getting started and you have any questions, when you're in your hub, just send us a message. Our team would love to help you get started, answer any questions that you have, and then most importantly, show you exactly how this can help your team really automate away all that manual task assignment. For those of you that are not Hubly users yet, you can ask our team any questions that you have over at myhubly.com. We also have a chat there, and we have an awesome way to connect directly with the Hubly team by scheduling a quick call to learn more about the product, but also to ask any questions that you have around specifically working more collaboratively with service teams. Okay, so thank you all for jumping on the call with us today and learning more about service teams. We're so excited to release this today. And if you have any other questions come up, please don't hesitate to ask in the chat or contact us as well by email. So thank you all.